Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink. It is time for some Path of Exile 1 discussion. Welcome to day 5 of Teaser Season for patch 3.27 and the upcoming Keepers of the Flame expansion. Today, we've got some pretty big news, but it is all hidden, because GGG Games put out a teaser video that had 4 pieces of information in it. 2 of them are things that GGG Games actually talk up themselves. 2 of them are hidden in there. And one of those could potentially be the biggest game changer that we have seen in Path of Exile 1, really since 3.17 introduced the whole of Atlas tree. More on that in a sec. Let's go from smallest to largest, and we want to start with the Refund All button, which is available on the character power passive tree. Why am I calling this the least important one? It's because the gold cost of respecking this way via gold is just prohibitive in most situations. There are times it's good, and where this is going to be most useful is when you're leveling a second character. So in your second character, you might have a whole bunch of gold already from your first character, and you're willing to say, you know what, I'm going to respec at level 55 after my second labyrinth, and then I'm going to play something totally different. I'll use the Refund All, I'll spend a bit of gold for a bit of convenience, not have to worry about trading into regret orbs and the like. However, if you are a very high level character, Refund All Atlas passives for 582,508 gold. No, just no. Use regrets instead, and I think that when you're using regret orbs, you actually don't have the quality of life here of the Refund All button, so it's basically going to be a trap button where you can pay way more in a much harder to gain resource in order to avoid the slight inconvenience of going and unclicking everything individually. So this one is a bit of a nothing burger, but we have a better respec thing that's being added as well. And this time, we're talking about using gold to respec Atlas passives. Now, this is something that is much more reasonably priced. Here, it is only costing 2,000 gold for each Atlas point that's being respec'd. We don't know that this is always the case, but 2,000 gold to save an Orb of Unmaking is reasonable, whereas 5 to 10,000 gold to save one Regret Orb is of somewhat more questionable value. So, those are the 2 overt teasers that are present. However, there is a lot more that is hidden here. I want to draw your attention to this breach cluster. Wait, that's not a breach cluster anymore. Why is that? And this is actually the same if you have a look at any of the other breach clusters on this Atlas passive tree. All of the breach support appears to have been removed from the passive tree. What players are speculating is going on, and I think they're right. Keepers of the Flame is going to be Breach 2.0. They learned from Necropolis League that having the current league's mechanics on the Atlas ends up feeling like a tax. Everyone has to take those points whether they want them or not. And if you don't take them, the new mechanic feels bad. So as a result, all of the breach support that's on the passive tree appears to have been removed. It appears to have been replaced by Beyond. And the reason that we know it's Beyond is that if you zoom in on 4K, you can actually see some of the icons that are present here, and they do match the Beyond icons that exist at the moment. Another thing people have mentioned, they've seen 142 refund points and been a little bit sus about that, but if you have a look at the number that's down here, you won't be able to see it on my video of a screenshot of a video, but I have been able to zoom in and confirm that your Atlas passive maximum is still 132, so that is not appearing to change. Okay, so we have the smallest change is the ability to respec your entire passive tree. The second smallest change is some changes to the way that you respec your Atlas passive tree. The second largest change that's coming is that Breach is getting kicked off the Atlas passive tree and being replaced by Beyond. What is the big one? What is the one that's going to reshape the entire game? Well, Faustus has a new option here. It is Manage Shop. Now, those of you that have been playing Path of Exile 2 will know there's a new NPC called Ange. She plays the same role that Faustus plays in Path of Exile 1, and she has an option called Manage Shop, and this is the Asynchronous Trading system. I'm not actually aware of any interpretations of this other than Asynchronous Trade is coming in patch 3.27. This is going to completely and utterly change the game. This is going to be something players are going to absolutely love early on, and is also going to send a lot of shockwaves through the Path of Exile 1 Trade League economy. So if you elect to play solo self-found in 3.27, this is not going to matter to you at all. But if you do play in Trade League, here's some of the things you can expect. In Path of Exile 2, by a few days into the league, middle tier gear is just pretty much unsellable. What Asynchronous Trading fundamentally allows Powergamers to do is to keep competing in the lower and medium end markets longer than they otherwise would. So for someone that gets into tier 17 maps on day 2, generally speaking, they're only going to be selling items in the old system that are worth at least half a divine. If they get something that's miles less than that, they're just not even picking it up at all. So when a unique item drops on day 2 of a league like Cold Iron Point or Calm's Primacy, that's genuinely good, but that isn't very rare, those people aren't going to loot it. The reason is they're not willing to turn around and sell it, even if doing so would get them 20 chaos, because that would require them to portal out of their current map, and they're not willing to do that for a small amount of currency. With asynchronous trading, those people are going to pick up those items. They are going to flood the market with them. What does this mean for you as a player that is not in tier 17s on day 2? Well, it means that cold iron point that you loot that might have got you your 6 link otherwise is instead going to be vendor trash. But at the same time, the cold iron point you want for your build, it's going to be really available and really cheap. Is this a net positive or a net negative? That's going to depend upon how much you sell items. It's also going to change a lot with different mechanics. So I want to quickly go through some of the Atlas mechanics that are big winners out of this and some that are big losers. Let's start with the biggest loser. I think that Expedition and ROG are now in a much worse state unless you are one of the fastest players to get to maps. And when I say fastest, I'm really talking about Eternal Labyrinth 6 hours into the league, that sort of speed. If you're at that point in progression and experience in the game, then you can completely ignore everything I'm saying about ROG. In fact, ROG is probably going to be better for you than he's been in the past. But what's going to happen? With ROG, he mass produces good but not extraordinarily good items. Generic good stuff, rare items. The reason these are going to be a lot worse in 3.27 with asynchronous trading is that you are going to be competing not just with the people who have good stuff items that are currently online, but also with the people that are currently offline. And this is going to end up with somewhat of a race to the bottom when it comes to prices. Now, this is really good if you're just looking to trade into good stuff, rare items. Like you want to get a couple of good amethyst rings to get yourself going solidly at endgame, then this is going to be fantastic for you. But if you are mass producing that stuff, whether through ROG, whether through Kingsmart shipments, whether through running Heist blueprints, there's a number of ways to get a lot of generic good stuff rares. If you're mass producing those, you're going to find that you are mass producing less value than you are perhaps used to. Unless, of course, you're one of the first there, because asynchronous trading fundamentally is a big force multiplier for being first. If you are first, you can mass produce items, and then you can have Faustus handle all of the distribution aspect of it, rather than you having to portal out and therefore slow yourself down in order to handle those trades. The other mechanics, though, that I think are going to do really well out of this, firstly, there is the Labyrinth. The Labyrinth is an absolute nightmare to run at the moment because every time that you start a new Labyrinth, someone pings you and says, hey, I want to buy this gem. Well, now they don't need to buy the gem from you. Instead, they just go to Faustus, buy it, and collect it from your shop. You don't need to interact with a person there. And in Labyrinth in particular, also to a lesser extent in Heist, that is really disruptive to your gameplay, having to keep a list of all the people that have pinged you. There are a number of macros that allow you to do this somewhat more easily, but even then, by the time you get back to people, they've bought something from someone else. The other mechanic, though, that's going to gain a lot out of this is going to be Einhar, the Menagerie, and Beast Crafting. There are a number of real barriers to beast crafting at the moment. The biggest one of these is the fact that it is so awkward to trade for individual beasts. Most of the people that are listing beasts are only really interested in doing large bulk sales. And as a result, quite often they will ignore someone that wants to buy one single beast. They will be like, oh yeah, buy 25 of them or don't bother. It's a complete pain in order to get any beast crafts done at all. Well, with asynchronous trading, if you are a beast farmer, you can simply list all of your itemized beasts in your Faustus shop, and that'll be trivial. At the same time, if you're looking to just perform beast crafts and you're not interested in farming them yourself, it's going to be much easier to trade for the specific Phenomenal Plague Naractive that you need for a split recipe, or a bunch of the more niche ones like the Pharaoh Wolf Elf, I think it is, that adds a prefix and removes a suffix, and I think there's an add a suffix, remove a prefix as well. Some of these more niche crafts that are very powerful, at least situationally, but that are sometimes very, very awkward to get to because of how much trade friction there is in beast crafting. All of this is addressed, and so beasts are going to be much better than they've been in the past. In general, any mechanic that allows you to mass produce middling tier items is going to feel much more fun to engage with Faustus existing, but also the loot that you're getting is just going to collapse in price as a result as well. Another mechanic I think is going to get a lot better with this is going to be in-map heist events, because you are fundamentally generating mostly consumable items rather than generating made items. So you're generating blueprints, you're generating deception contracts, you're generating any other contract that happens to be buffed to the point that it's good in 327. So you're generating these things, and these are all consumables. So the ability to sell them in numbers that are smaller than you've been able to sell them in the past is going to be huge, and Faustus is going to be fantastic there. Ultimately, I think this is going to be a great change for the game, but it's going to be one that is also going to result in a lot of complaints about where's my loot. The loot is still dropping, it's just worth less now because there's more competition for it, and as a result, your loot filter is now hiding it. It's still there, the loot hasn't been changed, you're just going to think you're getting less of it because you're going to tighten your loot filter. This is because items that used to be 20 chaos because you knew that people who were pricing at under 20 chaos weren't going to respond, they're now going to be 3 chaos because there's no effort on the part of the seller in order to actually do the transaction. And so you can have a real race to the bottom. The seller's not going to want to be paid for their time. Anyways, that's the single biggest change that's coming, and I'm going to leave it there. May your asynchronous trades be in interesting currencies.